So what if I told you there are entire states in America, right now, today, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, that are literally, systematically, bureaucratically designed to punish you for being too free? Yeah, I'm talking about states that look at someone living off-grid, homeschooling their kids, refusing unnecessary permits, starting a business without kissing 17 different rings, or just existing without constant permission slips from daddy government. And they think, that person, that's a threat, not a criminal, not a danger to society, not someone hurting anyone. A threat to what exactly? Control, revenue streams, the entire illusion that you need them infinitely more than they could ever need you. And here's the kicker. These aren't fringe conspiracy theories whispered in dark corners of the internet. These are documented policies, actual laws, real cases of people being fined, arrested, or having their property seized because they dared to be self-sufficient. Before the algorithm buries this video under cat compilations, reaction videos to reaction videos, and Elon's latest 3 a.m. tweet about why Mars needs cryptocurrency, let me show you exactly which states are the worst offenders, why they're absolutely terrified of human independence, what they're doing about it, and what that says about the actual world we're living in versus the one they taught you about in civics class. Oh, and real quick, if you think freedom sounds cool but appeasing, the almighty algorithm sounds cooler, go ahead and smash that like button into oblivion. Subscribe if you enjoy existential dread served with a side of sarcasm and a garnish of uncomfortable truths. Drop a comment telling me which state you think is the worst, or just yell into the void. I respect both equally, because liberty is great and all, but engagement metrics, chef's kiss, that's the real American dream now. Let me guess. You've felt it, haven't you? That creeping, suffocating sense that you can't just do things anymore without filling out forms, asking for permission, paying fees, and essentially begging the state to let you live your life. You want to build a simple shed on your own land you supposedly own, permit, building code review, inspection, fees that somehow cost more than the shed itself. Want to collect rainwater that literally falls from the sky, from the actual sky onto your own property. Illegal in some places. Like the government owns clouds now. Want to sell homemade jam at a farmer's market using recipes your grandmother taught you. License, health inspection, commercial kitchen requirements, liability insurance, probably a background check, maybe a psychological evaluation, and your firstborn child as collateral. You want to park an RV on land you paid for with money you earned? Nope. Code enforcement shows up like you're running a methamphetamine distribution network instead of just trying to downsize your lifestyle. You decide to homeschool your kid because the local school system is objectively failing and you'd rather take responsibility yourself. Suddenly you're on watch lists, filing quarterly reports, submitting to home inspections like you're hiding your child from society instead of just teaching them to read without indoctrination. You go off-grid, solar panels, well water, composting toilet, the whole sustainable dream, and the county treats you like you're either prepping for the apocalypse or literally committing an act of domestic terrorism, which, let's be honest, you might be prepping for societal collapse. But that's your business, and frankly, given the state of things, not entirely unreasonable. Every single little act of independence, every tiny step towards self-sufficiency is met with the same response. Actually, you can't do that. There's a regulation, there's a code, there's a fee, there's a process. You need permission. And you sit there thinking, wait, I thought this was America. I thought this was the place where rugged individualism was celebrated, where pioneers built their own lives, where freedom actually meant something. Turns out, that's the marketing. The reality is very, very different. Here's the uncomfortable truth they absolutely do not want you to realize. The secret hiding under the patriotic carpet of modern American civilization. Disobedience isn't dangerous because it hurts people. It's not restricted because it causes harm. It's dangerous, genuinely threatening to the system, because it exposes something they can't afford to have exposed. When someone successfully opts out, grows their own food, educates their own kids, builds their own shelter, generates their own power, creates their own income, lives without depending on state infrastructure, they reveal an absolutely devastating truth. You don't actually need the system nearly as much as the system needs you. You're not the beneficiary of their services. You're the product. You're the revenue stream. You're the justification for their existence, their budgets, their power, their entire reason for being. And certain states, specific, identifiable states with patterns we can trace, they really, really don't like that. They've built entire legal frameworks specifically designed to make independence as difficult, expensive, and legally hazardous as possible. And we're going to name names. Let's start with the obvious heavy hitters: California, New York, New Jersey. The unholy trinity of you will comply or we will fine you into absolute oblivion and then fine you again for good measure. These states have transformed local governance from providing services into a full-contact blood sport where every single aspect of your existence is regulated, monetized, and controlled. California, oh California, the state that will lecture you about freedom and diversity while simultaneously making it nearly impossible to actually be free or diverse in how you live. Try building a tiny house on your own rural land. Land you bought, land you own, land that's miles from anyone else. Sounds harmless, right? A small, sustainable dwelling where you can live simply and cheaply? Nope. Zoning laws, building codes, environmental impact studies, coastal commission reviews if you're anywhere near water, fire safety regulations, seismic requirements, permits that cost more than the entire house itself. You'd think you were constructing a nuclear reactor or a luxury resort, not a 200-square-foot cabin made of reclaimed wood. And if you somehow navigate that bureaucratic labyrinth, they'll get you on the septic system, or the solar panels, or the fact that your dwelling doesn't meet minimum square footage requirements because apparently the state has decided you're not allowed to choose to live small. They've literally made poverty illegal by regulation. Can't afford a proper house? Too bad. You're not allowed to build something you can afford. New York? Forget it. You need a permit to breathe in New York. Slight exaggeration, but only slight. The regulatory environment is so dense, so layered, so Byzantine that entire industries exist just to help you navigate compliance. Want to homeschool? Technically legal, sure, but they've made it so bureaucratically exhausting. Quarterly reports, annual assessments, standardized testing, curriculum approval, notification requirements, substantial equivalence reviews, that most parents just give up and send their kids back into the system, which is exactly the point. New York City specifically, you need permits and licenses for everything. Food vendor, multiple licenses, inspections, fees, home renovation, permits for every wall you touch. Want to have a business meeting in your own apartment? Technically requires different zoning. The city has essentially decided that every human activity is a revenue opportunity, and they're not leaving money on the table. New Jersey? Same energy, different accent. Some of the strictest land use regulations in the entire country. Want to be left alone on your 5 acres in rural New Jersey? Living quietly? Bothering nobody? Cool. Sounds great. Now fill out these 47 forms, pay these fees, submit to these inspections, meet these requirements, and maybe they'll allow you to exist peacefully. Maybe. Here's the thing, and this is crucial. It's not about safety. If it were genuinely about safety, about protecting people from harm, they'd focus resources on actual crimes, assault, theft, fraud, violence, things that actually hurt people. But instead, they're sending code enforcement after someone's chicken coop or tiny house or vegetable stand. Why? Because this isn't about safety. This is about revenue and control. Every permit is a fee. Every inspection is a government salary. Every regulation is a reminder that you don't really own anything. You're renting your life from the government, and the lease payment is due monthly in the form of compliance, fees, and silent obedience. It's like living in a homeowners association that covers the entire state, run by people you didn't vote for, enforcing rules you didn't agree to, with penalties you can't escape. And the punchline? They call this progress. They call this civilization. They call this keeping people safe, when really, it's just institutional control dressed up in the language of public welfare. Now let's talk about the off-grid people, the solar panel enthusiasts, the rainwater collectors, the composting toilet pioneers, the ones who looked at modern infrastructure, looked at their monthly bills, looked at their dependence on corporate utilities and government services, and said, you know what? No thanks. I'm going to live sustainably, independently, without a $300 electric bill every month, and without being tethered to systems that can be shut off whenever someone decides I've been too naughty. You'd think states would love this, right? Love these people? Less strain on the electrical grid, less demand for water infrastructure, self-sufficient citizens who don't need disaster relief because they're already prepared, environmentally conscious living that reduces carbon footprints. It's everything they claim to want. Wrong. Dead wrong. Hilariously, tragically wrong. In some states, Living off-grid is either explicitly illegal or so heavily restricted, so buried under regulations and requirements that it might as well be illegal. The bureaucratic equivalent of, you can technically do this, but we're going to make it so miserable that you won't. Florida, land of sunshine and freedom, right? Had a case that became somewhat famous in off-grid circles. A woman named Robin Spironis was legally forced to connect to the city water and electrical grid, even though she had her own solar panels, and was completely self-sufficient. She wasn't asking for services. She wasn't using their infrastructure. She was just existing independently on her own property. The city sued her, took her to court. Why? Because, they argued, her off-grid lifestyle violated the International Property Maintenance Code. The property had to be connected to electricity and water. Had to be. Not for her benefit, she didn't want it, but because the code said so. Translation: we need your money. You're supposed to be paying utility bills. If you're not paying for utilities, you're not contributing to the system, and we can't have that. Everyone must participate. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. Oregon has rules against collecting rainwater. Yes, rain, the stuff that falls from the sky above your property, because apparently the state owns water rights so completely that even precipitation belongs to them. You're standing in your backyard. It's raining. Water is literally falling on your head. And the government says, that water? Not yours. That belongs to downstream users, and we've allocated those rights, and you collecting it in a barrel is technically water theft. Colorado used to have almost identical laws. They've loosened them slightly now, but for years you couldn't harvest rainwater because of archaic water rights laws from the 1800s. Imagine that. It's 2025. You have the technology to collect, filter, and use rainwater sustainably. But laws written when people were riding horses say you can't. And the state enforces those laws, with fines, with penalties. It's like a cyberpunk dystopia, except instead of cool neon lights and flying cars, you just have angry code enforcement officers in minivans writing citations for your rain barrel. The reality, the ugly, uncomfortable reality, is that off-grid living threatens multiple powerful interests simultaneously. It threatens utility monopolies that profit from your monthly dependence. It threatens the tax base because off-grid people tend to have lower property values and consume fewer services. It threatens the entire model of centralized dependence that modern governance runs on. The system isn't designed to help you be independent. It's designed to make you need it. And when you demonstrate that you don't need it, that you can actually thrive without it, they respond with regulations, restrictions, and sometimes outright bans. Because if people can live without them, then what's the point of them? What justifies their budgets, their authority, their existence? Mini punchline. Turns out the grid isn't just electrical, it's philosophical, it's existential, and disconnecting from it is treated like heresy. Homeschooling, the ultimate act of educational disobedience. The radical notion that parents, people who literally created and are responsible for these children, might be capable of educating them without state oversight, and some states hate it, absolutely despise it, treat it with suspicion bordering on paranoia. New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, these are consistently ranked as the strictest, most hostile states for homeschooling. They require everything: prior approval, curriculum submission, quarterly progress reports, annual standardized testing, teacher qualification verification, home visits, educational plans. It's like they assume every homeschooling parent is running an underground cult or deliberately creating illiterate children instead of just teaching their kid math without Common Core drama and reading without age-inappropriate content. Pennsylvania requires a certified teacher to evaluate your homeschooled child annually. New York requires quarterly reports and annual assessments. Massachusetts can deny your homeschooling application if they don't approve of your curriculum or methods. Rhode Island requires you to provide evidence that you're teaching subjects in a manner consistent with public school standards, which completely defeats the purpose of homeschooling for many families. Here's the thing, they don't want you to think about too deeply. Public schools get funded based on attendance. Every student sitting in a classroom is a line item in the budget. When you homeschool, you're pulling a child out of the system, which means less funding. That's direct economic impact, but it's worse than that, because you're not just pulling funding, you're proving something dangerous. You're showing that education doesn't require a $15,000 per student bureaucracy. That learning can happen without administrators, without diversity officers, without standardized testing companies, without textbook monopolies, without the entire bloated apparatus that's grown around education like a parasitic organism. When homeschooled kids succeed, and statistically, they often do as well or better than public school kids on virtually every metric, it's devastating to the narrative. Because the narrative requires you to believe that education is complicated, specialized, something only trained professionals in government-approved institutions can provide, that you're not qualified, that attempting it yourself is irresponsible, possibly even abusive. But thousands of parents prove every year that it's not that complicated. You can teach reading, writing, math, science, history, critical thinking, all of it, without a teaching degree or a state curriculum or a school building. Which means the entire education establishment is, what exactly? Optional? Unnecessary? A choice, rather than a requirement? And let's be brutally honest about the other fear. The state doesn't just want to educate your kids, they want to socialize them, shape them, mold them into proper citizens with proper beliefs and proper attitudes. They want your children thinking in acceptable ways, believing approved narratives, conforming to social norms. Homeschooling threatens that completely. It says, I'll decide what my kid learns, when they learn it, and what values they're taught. Not you, not the system, not the collective, me. And that kind of parental authority, that kind of family sovereignty, is absolutely terrifying to a system built on institutional control. The punchline writes itself. The system calls it child welfare and educational standards. The parents call it freedom and responsibility. The kids, they just want to learn about dinosaurs, read good books, and maybe not spend 6 hours a day in institutional buildings that feel like minimum security prisons. But apparently that's too much to ask without filing 17 forms. Let's zoom way out now, because it's not just off-grid living or homeschooling. This pattern extends to everything, every single thing. Want to start a food truck, health permit, business license, food handler certification, vehicle permit, parking permits, potentially commissary kitchen requirements depending on the state. Want to braid hair professionally? In some states, you need a full cosmetology license requiring thousands of hours of training, even though braiding hair has almost nothing to do with chemical treatments or cutting, which is what those programs actually teach. Want to be an interior designer? Florida requires a license to tell people what color to paint their walls, a state license for aesthetic opinions. Want to start a simple lawn care business? In some states, you need licenses, insurance, potentially pesticide applicator certifications, even if you're not using pesticides. Want to teach music lessons from your home? Technically, that's a business, which might require zoning variances, because your property isn't zoned for commercial activity, even though you're just teaching a kid to play guitar in your living room. And my personal favorite example of bureaucratic insanity, lemonade stands. Kids' lemonade stands. There are documented cases, multiple cases, across multiple states, of police and health departments shutting down children's lemonade stands for operating without permits and licenses. Children selling lemonade for quarters on their own front yards. Let that sink in. A 7-year-old trying to earn a few dollars, learning about entrepreneurship and customer service and basic math, and the state responds with enforcement action because they don't have a food service permit. They haven't paid the fees. They haven't been inspected. They're operating an unauthorized food service establishment. It's not about safety. No one is getting sick from kid-made lemonade, and if they did, the danger is minimal. It's about the principle that every economic activity requires permission, that you can't just do things, that all human activity must flow through official channels, with official approval, generating official revenue. This is what happens when government becomes a business model rather than a service provider. Every human activity becomes a potential revenue stream. You can't build, can't sell, can't trade, can't teach, can't create, can't exist economically without someone taking a cut. It's not governance. It's not public service. It's a protection racket dressed in bureaucratic language. Nice little business you got there. Be a shame if someone required a permit, or an inspection, or a license renewal, or decided your zoning was incorrect, or found a code violation. Real shame. Now pay up. And the states that fear disobedience the most, they're inevitably the ones with the thickest permit books, the longest lists of licensed professions, the most regulations around simple economic activities. Because every regulation is a test of compliance. Every permit requirement is asking, will you comply? Will you ask permission? Will you pay the fee? Will you stay in line? And if you don't, If you dare to operate without permission, to engage in commerce without approval, to be economically free, fines, liens, business closure, property seizure. They won't throw you in jail for being entrepreneurial. That would look bad. They'll just take everything until you wish you were in jail, because at least that comes with 3 meals and a bed. Punchline: freedom isn't illegal. It's just really, really prohibitively, absurdly expensive, which is just another way of making it illegal for anyone who isn't wealthy. But we need to go deeper, because this isn't just about annoying bureaucracy or revenue generation, though it's certainly those things. This is about philosophy, about a fundamental worldview, about how the system views you, the individual, the citizen, the human being trying to live their life. There's a belief system underlying all of these regulations, and it goes something like this. People cannot be trusted. Individuals, left to their own devices, will make bad decisions that harm themselves and others. Freedom without oversight leads to chaos, exploitation, environmental destruction, child abuse, fraud, and societal breakdown. Therefore, for the greater good, for public safety, for the collective welfare, individual freedom must be limited, regulated, supervised, and controlled. It's a fundamentally paternalistic worldview. The state as parent, citizens as children who need guidance and boundaries and constant supervision. You're not trusted to educate your own children. You might teach them wrong things. You're not trusted to build your own shelter. You might build it unsafely. You're not trusted to live off-grid. You might create health hazards. You're not trusted to start a business. You might defraud customers or create unsafe products. Never mind your track record. Never mind that you're a responsible adult who's never harmed anyone. Never mind that you're actually more careful and conscientious than average, because you're taking personal responsibility. The system doesn't care. The system treats everyone as a potential threat requiring preemptive regulation. And here's where it gets really dark, really fast. This philosophy doesn't stop at regulation. It escalates. Because once you accept the premise that individual freedom is dangerous and requires oversight, there's no logical stopping point. Start with requiring permits for buildings. End with requiring government approval for having children. Start with regulating businesses. End with social credit scores that determine your access to services. Start with common sense regulations. End with surveillance states that monitor every transaction, every movement, every communication. Sound extreme? Look at where some of this is already heading. Financial surveillance, digital identity systems, misinformation regulations that determine what speech is acceptable, ESG scores for businesses, pre-crime algorithms. The infrastructure of total control is being built right now, brick by brick, regulation by regulation, all in the name of safety, security, and the greater good. And the early warning signs? They're people who want to live off-grid being forced back onto the grid. Homeschoolers being treated like criminals. Small business owners being crushed under permit requirements. Because those people represent resistance. They represent the idea that maybe, just maybe, individuals can be trusted. That freedom isn't dangerous. That independence is actually healthy. The system can't allow that idea to spread. Can't allow successful examples of people living freely, independently, outside centralized control. Because every successful example is propaganda against the system. Every thriving off-gridder, every well-educated homeschooler, every successful unlicensed entrepreneur is proof that the system isn't necessary, that it's optional, that it exists not for your benefit, but for its own perpetuation. Let's trace this escalation explicitly, because understanding the pattern is crucial. Stage 1. Inconvenience. Regulations that are annoying but manageable. Permits that cost a few $100s. Inspections that waste your time but don't destroy your plans. Most people comply because it's easier than fighting. Stage 2. Financial burden. Fees that climb into thousands. Licensing requirements that require months or years of training. Regulations that make small-scale operations economically impossible. This filters out everyone except those with significant capital or institutional backing. Stage 3. Legal threat. Serious fines, business closure, property liens, criminal penalties for operating without permission. This is where the state goes from annoying to dangerous, where non-compliance becomes genuinely risky. Stage 4. Surveillance and enforcement. Proactive hunting for violations, anonymous tip lines, satellite imagery to find unpermitted structures, database cross-referencing to find unlicensed activity. The system actively searching for disobedience, rather than just responding to complaints. Stage 5. Social consequences. This is emerging now. Public shaming, being labeled as dangerous, irresponsible, antisocial, your independence being framed as selfishness or extremism, being denied services or opportunities because you're not in compliance with various systems. Some states are still at stage 1 or 2, but the control states, California, New York, and their ilk, they're operating at stages 3 and 4, with stage 5 emerging, and they're not slowing down. Every legislative session brings new regulations, new requirements, new ways to monitor and control. Why? Because the beast is never satisfied. Bureaucracies don't voluntarily shrink. Regulations don't naturally decrease. Power doesn't willingly limit itself. Every year, there are new problems that require new solutions, which means new regulations, which means more control. And the people who suffer most? Not the wealthy. They can afford lawyers, accountants, permit expediters, consultants. Not corporations. They have entire departments dedicated to regulatory compliance. No, the people who suffer most are ordinary individuals trying to live independently, trying to start small businesses, trying to build modest lives without massive capital or institutional support. The regulations crush small-scale independence, while big players navigate easily, which means the regulations serve the opposite of their stated purpose. They don't protect the little guy. They protect established interests from competition. They don't enable freedom. They concentrate power. So here's the truth that's been hiding under the star-spangled carpet of modern American civilization. Some states don't just dislike disobedience. They fear it. Actively, systematically, institutionally fear it. Because disobedience, successful independence, voluntary opting out, these things reveal that the emperor has no clothes. They prove that the system isn't necessary, that ordinary people can live, learn, build, create, and thrive without constant oversight, without endless permissions, without being plugged into centralized control systems. And that's the most dangerous idea possible to a system built on dependency. Which states are the absolute worst? The ones with the most regulations, the highest fees, the thickest permit books, the most hostile attitudes toward independence. The ones that treat every act of self-sufficiency like a crime and every request for freedom like a threat. California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Maryland, Illinois. The usual suspects, but it's spreading. The philosophy is contagious. Because bureaucrats in other states look at the control mechanisms in these places and think, hey, that's revenue we're missing. That's control we don't have. Let's import those regulations. And slowly, the map of freedom shrinks while the map of control expands. What can you do about it? Know where you live. Know what you're dealing with. Research your state's regulations before you start projects. Find the loopholes. And yes, there are always loopholes. Because bureaucracies are stupid even when they're evil. Connect with other independent-minded people. Support organizations fighting for property rights, homeschooling freedom, small business rights. Vote for people who actually believe in limited government instead of just talking about it. And maybe, if you're feeling radical, move. Vote with your feet. Leave the control states for places that still remember what freedom means. Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Idaho, Montana. States that aren't perfect, but at least don't treat independence as a crime, because that's ultimately the choice. Comply or relocate. Fight or flee. Stay and push back or leave for freer territory. But whatever you do, don't pretend this isn't happening. Don't convince yourself that it's not that bad, or they mean well, or it's for safety. They don't mean well. They mean control, and it is that bad and getting worse. So stay informed, stay aware, and maybe, just maybe, stay disobedient. Next video, I'm breaking down the actual loopholes these control states don't want you to know about. The legal strategies, the geographic workarounds, the bureaucratic blind spots. Click now before I get regulated into uploading from an undisclosed location. Maybe international waters, maybe Guam, definitely without sunscreen. See you there. Stay free.